Coming up on Hoge and Jahns, we are deep into camp, past the halfway point. Where do things stand with Caleb Williams and the offense? And Mike Sando joins us, as he always does, with his quarterback tiers. We're going to talk about Caleb Williams' ranking and what people around the league think about him at this point. Hoge and Jahns starts right now. What's up? Welcome in, Hoge and Jahns. Back with you. The midpoint of August, past the midpoint of camp. Feels like a big week, honestly. As Caleb Williams and the offense try to get on track. We haven't talked to you guys since we saw Monday's practice, and there's been a lot of discussion the last couple of days about the quarterback tiers, which come out every year. That's nothing new on this show. Mike Sando from The Athletic usually joins us this time of year to talk about his quarterback tiers and everything that goes into it. And this year's no different. He's going to join us here in a little bit. What's going on, Johnsy?
I can't wait to talk to Mike. Always enjoy this conversation because when I read his QB tiers, I was like, oh no, just the description or his details on Caleb Williams, because I don't want to give it away. I want to talk to Mike about this, but everything he kind of listed there as far as concerns, I think we're kind of seeing in training camp right now. You and I have talked about it on this podcast. You and I have seen it live at camp at Hallis Hall. So I don't know if I'm moving into a more concerned stage, but it's going to be good to talk to Mike just to get through this.
Yeah. And we'll save the quarterback tier stuff for when he comes in here, but the quotes in there are certainly interesting. I think they're pretty fair, both on the good and bad side of it. And if we just set that aside for a second here and just sort of regroup, we're about to hit a stretch here as we're recording this Wednesday morning. So you might be listening to this later Wednesday. Maybe practice is already in the books. It is an open practice today. Fans will be out there. The next 3 days are open. Friday is an open practice against the Bills, a joint practice. And then they got another game Sunday night, which I believe is nationally televised. I think it's like an actual Sunday night dress rehearsal type situation. So there might be some extra eyes too on the Bears and what they do playing their starters. It already kind of was a controversy last weekend. I'm going to say this. So Mondays, don't shoot the messenger, please. Monday's practice was not good. And it was the culmination of what Ben Johnson was trying to accomplish over the weekend by avoiding playing in the game, having that joint practice Friday. So if we just rewind a little bit, Friday, I thought Caleb Williams came out strong. 1-on-1s, 7-on-7s, looked pretty good. Even the first team session, even though he actually threw a pick on his first throw in that team period, I thought it was overall pretty good. And then I thought the Dolphins won the last three, including the situational stuff at the end, and it got kind of sloppy. I was not at the throwing session early Sunday morning, but my understanding is there were some accuracy issues in that too. And that was on air. There was no defense. So it was like a ton of throws. I know someone said 70, someone said 87. Whatever the number was, it was a lot. And it certainly wasn't perfect. And then Monday's practice was at best disjointed. It was mostly starters. They got a decent amount of work in a 70-minute practice, but there were accuracy issues. There was processing issues. At one point, Caleb Williams threw a deep ball out of bounds, and Ben was pissed that he didn't hit the check down. He made that very clear, and they had a long discussion during the water break right after that. And there were just too many balls on the ground. So my conclusion after digesting all of that, I don't think Ben Johnson got out of last weekend what he was hoping to get. The progress that he was hoping to make, I don't think was made. So now it's your job as the head coach to regroup, and how do you speed this thing up? I think they're behind right now, Jahns. I think they're behind, not necessarily big picture Caleb Williams development, but behind in trying to beat the Vikings week 1, getting this offense to where it needs to be with Caleb Williams running the show. And so there's got to be a sense of urgency this week, in my opinion. I think what's going to happen is same emphasis on the joint practice mattering against a good Bills team. And I suspect you're going to see the starters play on Sunday night against the Bills. I think that that's a pivot that Ben Johnson is sort of going to be forced to make. I don't know if that was the original plan. It didn't sound like that was the original plan. But I think he's kind of being forced into, all right, they do need live game reps. We got to see what they can all do together.
I don't know if he's being forced, but every rep kind of matters right now. And if you could steal some reps on Sunday against some live competition, I don't care if it's the Buffalo Bills reserves. I think you have to get it. I would phrase it like the Bears are behind on becoming – I'm making this look better. I'm being more consistent on having like tangible progress where you and I are marking days where Caleb Williams is flirting with 70% and not hovering around 50%. Especially in drills that favor the offense. So we may sound like we're raising some alarm bells here, but I think the days are fleeting in a sense, right? We're halfway through camp, and there's not a lot of days left. We got practice today, Thursday, Friday against the Bills. Again, that's going to be an important day. Then you have the preseason day, and then you have the Bears practicing on Monday, and then you got the Kansas City Chiefs game coming up. So these days are kind of numbered. They don't have any live days left, actually, if we're going off what Ben Johnson said on our podcast last week. Those days are extremely numbered. So if you want to see full go competition hovering around, swarming around Caleb Williams, those days are really numbered as you prep for the regular season. So to me, I want to see more consistency, and I think it's a problem that we haven't really written about. Here's the story. This is one of his best days. Like, I want to hear about a great day, like an absolute great day where he's completing 75% of his passes. The pass catchers are catching the ball in stride, getting down the field. There's multiple touchdowns scored in all different team periods, especially in the 2-minute situations. We haven't covered that yet. We haven't. So maybe this period of practices, this block of practices is when it happens. But I'm with you in arguing the point that it's time to see more consistency, more success, and less balls on the ground if you're Caleb Williams moving forward here in camp.
Yeah, and I think all that's fair at this point. And I also want to be clear, this is not anybody raising panic. I think this is what's going on.
Sounds like a little bit, and I'm guilty of it myself, but I think the days are kind of winding down here.
But I wanted to make it clear, though, I think this is what's happening inside the building, too. And I don't think it's panic. I just think it's a sense of urgency. And I think it's a sense of we're a little bit behind where we wanted to be at this point. So, and to your point about the days being numbered, I mean, this is your last real week of training camp. And you get this joint practice against the Bills.
That's the point I'm trying to make here.
Yeah. And next week, I don't know, there might be another padded practice mixed in there too, but it's a short week turning around to play Friday with the travel day in there. And they're not even practicing every single day. Let me look at the schedule right now. They got a close practice Monday, which right now is slated to be similar as last week with the guys that don't play in the game. But if they end up playing in the game, we might have a schedule change here, Jahns. I don't know if Tuesday then becomes a practice or what, but basically on the schedule right now, you have that same sort of half team practice Monday, and then a real practice Wednesday, and then Thursday is a walk-through travel day, and you're playing Friday night against the Chiefs. So to Johns' point, there's just these next 3 days are huge.
This is offensive coordinator Declan Doyle on what he wanted to see from Caleb this week. Here he is, and quote, the specific things really that we're getting into now. We're preparing for specific opponents. Hello, Minnesota Vikings. He didn't say that. I added that. But just like last week, when Miami comes to town and you're starting to prepare for that type of defense, a lot of the improvements happen within the meeting room and things like that. His process of how am I going to study this team? How am I going about executing the game plan that we're going to put together for a specific team? Buffalo, a totally different style of defense coming in. Really, that's the biggest thing that we're looking for as a staff, is him continuing to develop and handle that classroom work.
So, I mean, the way I heard that was, and this is interesting because typically you don't do a lot of scheming up against a preseason opponent, but these joint practices are a little bit different because you're running a little bit more of your normal stuff. So it sounds like they actually are doing some scheming matchup type stuff, to get them ready for the Dolphins last week.
And I love that, though. Like, you don't want to get your butts kicked. You should be planning a little bit. You should be watching them on film. It only helps. Your prep is, as Declan Doyle said, as you get ready for the regular season.
Well, and we made this point last week, and Declan Doyle made it too. I mean, that Dolphins defense is a little bit different. It's more of a Ravens type defense. And there were times, especially in those last three periods, I say the Dolphins won, where Caleb was struggling to see what was coming, where the blitzes were coming from, what he was actually looking at. And so I think that's where, transitioning this conversation a little bit to what we're going to talk to Mike Sando about, which is really just him presenting what NFL GMs and coaches are saying about these quarterbacks. Those are the concerns right now. It's the processing. It's speeding that up. It's the accuracy. The accuracy, I found the accuracy on Monday to be very disappointing. I'm just going to say that. It was there. And I'll also say this, he could have been helped a bunch by his wide receivers. There were a number of passes that were like just a little bit too far outside. I would expect my number one wide receiver to catch that. A little bit to the hip, not a great ball on the run. That's one where, to me, in the meeting room, you get on the quarterback for saying that ball has to be here in front so that he can catch and run. Also, DJ Moore, you're paid to catch that ball anyway. And both can be true. I saw a lot of plays like that on Monday. But, all right, let's reset. They had an off day yesterday. My overall point is I don't think last weekend went to plan. And this weekend's got to be better. And it could, and it hopefully should. But this is a good Bills team.
But you're not criticizing Ben Johnson for sitting out his starters in the preseason game. I think what we're trying to get at is the stuff kind of built around it, that those 70-plus reps before the game, and then Monday's practice where he got a ton of reps. What you're saying is that was an opportunity to improve, show consistency, and you didn't see it. It wasn't delivered.
I don't want to do hindsight 2020. Hey, it didn't work, so that was a bad plan. I appreciate that Ben Johnson had a plan, and I defended that for most of the weekend. And it was less about me agreeing or disagreeing with that plan as much as just applauding the fact that there was a plan. This wasn't just calling off the dogs and being like, we're good, we don't want to show our scheme to our opponents on tape. It was, no, they're going to get more reps. I can appreciate that, especially considering there's 2 preseason games. But my point all along was, well, based on the results of this weekend, you might have to make some changes for next weekend. I just think that that's probably what we're going to see this week, because I don't think the results are what they were hoping for. And now you got to adjust. And I thought Ben kind of showed his cards a little bit last week. Like, I think he was legitimately thinking about pivoting last week before that game on that off day.
And
come up.
Yeah. Okay.
I think he considered playing the starters last week and it was like, all right, let's stick to the plan. Let's see how it goes. Okay. Now look, it's now August 13th. We're not where we need to be. How do we accelerate this? What do we need to do? And I think it's a natural conclusion that they need live reps this week.
I just think from like a mental aspect, like those joint practices, turn on a light a little bit. That's not there. More physical, different opponent, competitive, times 10 as opposed to other practices, although that Tuesday practice still stands out for a lot of us. But then the preseason game, now the light's really on. The quarterback can be hit. Can't be hit. So he's got to get the ball out. He's got to process quicker. So maybe that's what they need. Maybe that's the answer to getting things to work for the offense more consistently as we try to get through, as they try to get over whatever last week was.
Hey, I should have mentioned this earlier, but before we bring Sando in, Jahnsy has an outstanding story on Antoine Randall. You guys should be checking out allchgo.com. It's unlocked for you diehards, and it's a must read. It's really good. I don't know that people, if you're any younger than us, probably, Jahnsy, I don't know that people understand how big of a high school star Antoine Randall was, and even how much I remember still following him at Indiana. Like, this is Indiana football, and this is when they had the old IU circle logo, which is regrettable now in hindsight.
Way back.
But this is what. But I remember being like, yeah, okay, this is the guy that took down, or helped take down Kevin Garnett, 3-sport star, goes down to play quarterback in Indiana, and we'd still follow him. Did he win the silver football too when he was at IU?
So I was surprised. So I talked to Roma Dunze and Olamide Zacchaeus about it, and they did their own research on him, but he doesn't really bring up, or at least he hasn't to the point when I was talking to them, like his past. He's got a lot to, like, sure, his experience comes through his coaching and his messaging, but he's not sitting in there like, hey, I was drafted by the Cubs, or hey, let me show you this video clip on YouTube, because the full game's on there of me and my teammates at Thornton beating Farragut and Ronnie Fields and Kevin Garnett. The whole game's on there. You can watch it. Go look it up on YouTube. Or, hey, I played for Bobby Knight. Let me tell you a few stories about him. Now, I'm sure they're going to come up in time, but Dunze and Zacchaeus both did their own research on him. They're just like, wow, this is, forget, winning the 2 Super Bowls, including throwing a touchdown pass in one, but the guy is an impressive story just locally too.
Yeah, it's really good. His impact, why he followed Ben Johnson in Chicago, super interesting. I think you'll understand it, but you got to read it. So become a diehard, scan that QR code, go to hogeandjahns.com. You can still sign up, and those hats are available too for sale. If you're a diehard, you get 20% off, but even if you're not, you can still purchase those. Those are in the locker at allchgo.com as well. All right. We got to bring in Mike Sando, so we're going to take a quick time out. When we come back, we will talk to Sando about the QB tiers. Sunnyside Cannabis Dispensary is your home for judgment-free cannabis shopping, a place where all kinds of visitors are welcome to explore, discover, purchase a wide array of high-quality products. Sunnyside is everything you need to elevate your summer. It's a one-stop shop for all your cannabis needs. Sunnyside has an expertly curated menu with over 100 strains to choose from, plus easy online ordering and in-store pickup. They are Illinois' favorite dispensary with locations in the city, Wrigleyville and River North, to the suburbs, Champaign, South Beloit, and more. And if you're just starting out, Sunnyside is expert guidance and brands that we know you'll love, like Good News and Mindy's. And if you happen to be a pro already, got you covered with over 100 strains on the menu and new ones added daily. Visit sunnyside.shop for bright buys every day, including 50% off your first 3 online purchases. Enter promo code HICHGO at checkout to qualify. Exclusions apply. Sunnyside Cannabis Dispensary, bright buys every day, only for 21 plus or Illinois medical card holders. And if you happen to be an existing user, you can use promo code CHGO50 for 50% off one Cresco Labs brand item. And it's been hot out, and it's been relentlessly hot. So hopefully your AC has been up for the challenge. 4 Seasons Heating, Air Conditioning, Plumbing, and Electric has been serving Chicagoland for over 50 years. Now is your time to get your AC checked out. 4 Seasons experts are ready to help you with AC installation, maintenance, and repair. 4 Seasons expert technicians ensure that you're always getting reliable service, and they don't charge more for service during nights, weekends, and holidays. So schedule your 4 Seasons AC tune-up today. Save 50% off and enjoy a 1-year no-breakdown guarantee. Your trusted local experts are 4 Seasons Heating, Air Conditioning, Plumbing, and Electric. Visit fourseasonsheatingcooling.com for all their special offers and money-saving coupons. That's fourseasonsheatingcooling.com. All right, it's our annual conversation with Mike Sando, NFL columnist for The Athletic. Does such a great job. And this piece, this project, I really should call it, is a must-read every single year. Mike, I know it takes a lot of time and effort, but it creates a lot of fun debate right before the season starts. So I want to start you with this. First of all, thank you for all the work you're doing in this project, because it's awesome. It's great insight on all the quarterbacks, not just Caleb Williams, but who so far, because you've been doing a ton of hits and interviews this week, which quarterbacks have caused like the most controversy and argument so far this week?
Well, I can tell you that the biggest relief this year was that Lamar Jackson was just way up in tier 1, because he's been in tier 2 in the past, and I get slapped around on that one, and I'm just trying to explain what people are thinking. It's not my vote. And so this year, right out of the gates, I got slapped around on Jalen Hurts being, quote, only tied for 9th, Super Bowl MVPs. He's made big plays. I think he's perfectly placed. I think that he's got a lot of great stuff around him, and there's a volume level of how much you want him throwing the ball. That if you turn it up too much, you get distortion in your speakers. To use that as an analogy. And I think some of those guys at the very top, you can crank it, more, and it sounds real good. So that's what I would say about Hurts. He's probably been the number one. Some have wondered, hey, what's up with Stafford jumping into tier 1? Like, he's 11 straight years in tier 2, and then now he goes to tier 1.
I was wondering that myself.
So on that one, he's always been like really high tier 2. So I'm kind of, I don't think there was a sea change on him. I think he got 5 more votes in tier 1. It gave him 26 in tier 1. So it's kind of like he moved 2 blocks but crossed state lines, and so now he's in a different state, and you're like, oh my gosh, Matthew Stafford moved to Indiana, and you're like, yeah, but he lived right on the border, so that's kind of how I would see that, is like, hey, good for him, but he's still way at the bottom of tier 1 with a huge gap after Burrow, Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, and Josh Allen.
I'm not sure how close you're following what's happening here in Chicago, but if I were to tell you that Caleb Williams is holding the ball too long in Bears training camp, what would you say after compiling this outstanding piece?
Well, I mean, Rome wasn't built in a day. I don't think 2 weeks of camp you're going to see that it's all coming easily for him. And I think that's one thing you have to keep into account this year, is it's hard to change offenses. Now, it's up to Ben Johnson to make his quarterback look as good as he can. But I know, like, somebody like Kirk Cousins or Aaron Rodgers, these guys have played forever. They know, they have a mastery of their offense, and when they change, they're uncomfortable. So I think this is a difficult change under tremendous pressure with a huge spotlight and great expectations. I could see him holding the ball, just even if he was not somebody whose processing was questioned, just because he's probably overloaded at this point going in. So I would ask, for some grace on him that we're probably not going to get. He's going to be evaluated on every day of camp and all of that, but I think it's going to be a process.
You had 5 quotes in the Caleb Williams part. I think 2 from GMs, 2 from coaches, 1 from a defensive coordinator. Maybe 2 defensive coordinators. Yeah, 2 defensive coordinators. But they're all sort of similar. I feel like they're all like, look, he has the talent. Multiple guys were like, he could become a tier 1 guy. He's got tier 1 talent. I thought the thing that was most interesting to me was one of the coaches saying what I think we feel here in Chicago too, which is, was last year more him or more coaching? Because we can all acknowledge it was a horrible place to put a rookie in. And I think that's just like the big question right now. How much of it was actually on him?
I think that, let's just assume that the coaching was suboptimal and they didn't do a great job with him. I think you're still looking for a number 1 pick in the draft to overcome to a degree that he didn't, and to show more signs of sort of picking it up, advancing, getting it, and making the game look easier. And so look, when you change in the middle of the year, though, it was more chaotic than most. So I think you have to give him a little bit of a pass, but still raise these questions until they're answered. I think they're legitimate questions that people who've really studied the film, and there were a lot of people that studied it because that was a place that was opening up, and so people were looking at that like, hey, what if I got an interview there, or had an opportunity there? They wanted to see what was going on with Caleb Williams, and I think they didn't come away going, oh my gosh, I'd love to get my hands on him. They came away going, I wouldn't turn it down, the job, because of him, but I do have some concerns. And that's a big shift from, I think, where we were, on draft day 2024, when it was just a consensus number one overall pick. Nobody questioned the Bears for what they did. And now I think, if you polled these people, like, of these quarterbacks that were in that class, who would you take? Like, he might be not in the top two,
I think your strongest quote is from, this defensive coordinator. I'm going to read it real quick.
Yeah.
He's got the talent to go up, but in terms of processing ability and getting the ball out of his hands, it was the worst we played against. He holds the ball forever. I'm thinking the ball should go right there. Throw it. And he did not throw it. A few others in the Caleb Williams part question his processing too. Was there more too? Because I know there's so much that goes into it, and there's an editing process.
Yeah.
But how common was the questions about his processing?
Yeah, it was common enough. Yeah, there was more that I didn't put in there, and so definitely it was a strong enough theme. Like, I try to be careful in this thing. Like, if there's one outlier view, I might include it, but then I would have it balanced out. In this case, it was such a common theme that I felt like I needed to, lean into it a little bit just to be accurate in portraying what people were saying.
So you mentioned like where Caleb would be now in that draft class. And one of the biggest stories of your quarterback tiers is how high Jaden Daniels debuted, because rookie quarterbacks aren't in this. You got to play a year before you get in. Jaden Daniels and Caleb Williams both new to the tiers this year, but he is the top quarterback in tier 2, number 6 overall. I guess I expected a little bit more pushback to the system that he played in last year and maybe how throws were schemed up. Didn't really sound like you got a ton of feedback on that. And most of it, which is also completely fair, obviously, from what we saw, was this dude just seems to be a playmaker, and he'll stand in there and he'll take hits, and just seems to have this clutch factor to him.
He does seem to have, like, big recurring theme on him was it wasn't too big for him. He just looked like he belonged right away. I think we saw that just watching from afar, that early game against Joe Burrow in Cincinnati. Remember, he dropped that ball down in there for a touchdown, and it was like a goosebump moment. If you're a Washington fan, you've been waiting for this for so long. There is an element of, okay, our defense is going to catch up to this offense, but there weren't really concerns specific to Jaden Daniels. Like, they liked his processing, and they liked the way he played, and they think that he's a great worker at it, and really wants to get better, and is kind of already a true pro in the way he handles himself. I think what really helped him in this too was to mitigate some of the skepticism that you always get from a good rookie year, was the playoff push. They ended up in the championship game, which is very unusual. And, just doubling off of that, they had a bottom 10 defense. It's like really hard to, be in the championship game with a bottom 10 defense, and especially as a rookie quarterback. So he got 17 tier 1 votes. He blew away, I think, the record that Stroud had set for, debut in this as a second-year player. Stroud had beaten the record that Justin Herbert had set in 2021. And so, I think looking back at those two other quarterbacks, people thought Herbert would be in tier 1 by now. He's kind of plateaued. And then people thought, hey, Stroud was on his way. He got, I think, a year ago, 12 tier 1 votes. He only got 1 this year. So I think those are good, good cases to bring up and saying, hey, there's a reason he's at the top of tier 2, not in tier 1 already. And there's no guarantee. I think there is a decent chance that defenses are going to be better against him. one of my favorite quotes was just about how this could be a race between, Sean Payton and Cliff Kingsbury in developing quarterbacks, with the reference being to Bo Nix, who came in as the second quarterback from that class.
So Jared Goff, Ben Johnson's former quarterback, came in at number 8. Caleb Williams is 23. What's the best way to evaluate that gap, especially since this is what we're covering? Ben Johnson going from Jared Goff to Caleb Williams.
Well, two totally different types of quarterbacks. I was surprised in this thing. One of the surprises for me is I thought people were going to knock Goff down, saying, "Oh, you know what? He lost. He had it all schemed up, and now he's going to lose Ben Johnson, and he's going to come back to the pack." And instead, he got affirmed as a high tier 2. I think those are two difficult players to compare because of playing style. I think that Caleb Williams is always going to have that off-schedule component that gives him some juice in that way that Goff isn't going to have. But I think there's real questions now based on what we saw last year, and then all of these people talking about how fast can he process the game. Is he ever going to be the type of passer that Goff was? And I think you'd have to really wonder about that.
This is kind of more of a big picture question for the feedback you get on all the quarterbacks. It's just, is that debate that we always just seem stuck in it endlessly here in Chicago between like how much of it's the coaching versus how much
we've
how
got
much
a lot of quarterbacks
yeah.
on Mike here.
Yeah. How much of it's the coaching versus how much it's the put. But I'm even talking about this like you just brought this up in Jared Goff's case. So even in the good cases, it seems like that's still a debate. But how much does that come up for all the quarterbacks, or is it less of an issue for these guys that end up higher in the tiers? Are we not talking about the coaching as much?
Well, I think it really depends. I feel like there's, at any time in the league, wouldn't you say there's no more than a half a dozen offensive play callers that are really differentiating people, right? So you'd say if you're in a Shanahan system, you're just going to hear it. Yeah. Look at if you go look at like the all-time yards per attempt leaders or something, like Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be up there. Yet no one's going to consider Garoppolo to be like even a Pro Bowl type of quarterback, let alone a top guy in the history of the game. But he has some stats that are really amazing, and he won a ton of games. So I think we could see there, and Purdy lives with this a little bit too, as a late pick who's putting up great numbers in that system. He's going to hear about the system. I was a little bit surprised that Goff didn't, but hear that as much either. But also, Goff was the number 1 pick who'd been to a Super Bowl before, and put up some really big numbers before. So some of that could be where you're drafted as well. I think when you're super high drafted, more of it goes on you at a certain point than if you're lower and picked up and succeeding in an offense that you sort of feel like the coach could plug almost anybody in and get the most out of them.
I thought the 23rd placing for Caleb Williams was just fascinating because he was right behind Drake May, a player drafted after him in his draft class, and then he was right before Bryce Young, who can forget the trade of the first pick. I don't know if you read into that too much, but
yeah,
go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, so I mean, yes and no. I think for the guys who haven't played as much, they get some tier 4 votes sometimes that are, hey, we just don't know enough yet. Tier 4 is kind of a weird one because you can get into tier 4. You can get tier 4 votes that's like a Russell Wilson or a Kirk Cousins, where you've played so much and people think you're kind of done as a starter. You can also get tier 4 votes like, Bo Nix got some, where it's like no one's saying that they think he's not going to be a good starter. They're just like, hey, I need to see a little more before I move him into one of those higher tiers. And so that can happen with some of the young guys, and that can make you be, artificially lower maybe in some cases. Now, Caleb, I think, got some of those, maybe not enough information, but the information we got was a little bit concerning. So we're not going to push you up and be super excited about you.
So let's use this opportunity then we talked about Jared Goff. I'd like to discuss the other 2 quarterbacks in the NFC North since we have you on. Let's start with Jordan Love. He ends up 13th, keeping the same tier that he was in a year before, despite probably not as great of a season. What's the feedback you got on Jordan Love and his trajectory right now?
I thought it was all over the place. I think I think there was not a good consensus read on him. There's an acknowledgement of the talent, and then there's sort of this like debate or different perspectives on, hey, why isn't he even higher, right? Why didn't he take that perceived jump last season beyond the injuries that he had? There was one person who thought, they could do more to tailor the offense around him. I haven't heard that criticism of Matt LaFleur very much. He's done a great job of tailoring it to the backup there when they had to play and win with a running quarterback. And then there was some that said, I can't believe how much they pushed the ball down the field. It was almost like they're willing to risk interceptions just to make you to defend the whole field. It was really noticeable. Seemed like they were almost forcing it a little bit. There were some who thought, hey, the big skill players they have there are really doing a lot of the work, and wasn't overly impressed with Love. I think there's an intrigue with him. I think there's, people just kind of want to see, probably some of it's muddied by that playoff game against Dallas a couple of years ago. Like people were like, oh my gosh. And so you've seen that on the biggest stage and you see the flashes, but I don't think we've seen the consistency. So you wonder there, okay, they drafted a receiver in the first round. Is that gonna, is that gonna help him be more consistent? Maybe he's just a young player finding his way with a ton of talent, and it's going to take time.
Then you have J.J. McCarthy, who got, well, to your point earlier, 50 tier 4 votes just because you need more information, is the way I read that.
Totally. He was interesting because there was a lot of kind of veiled stuff about him this offseason where like no one was really saying specifically what the Vikings seemed to be concerned about, but they were concerned about something. And then there seemed to be like this almost campaign or push to restore him as, hey, this is the guy they wanted all along. So I'm just anxious for him to play because I think all of those types of narratives get a little dangerous in an off season in the absence of playing. But there was something there that if we knew more of the details about, maybe it would make sense, but it just felt a little off there. Would you agree?
100%. It was weird. And at one point we had Pete Bursich, who's the radio analyst for the Vikings, in studio with us, and they were just as confused as everybody else was about why there was any flirtation with Aaron Rodgers whatsoever after drafting this guy. And I think that led to some of the, even let's call it speculation. It seemed like there's something there, but what is it? Because otherwise, why are you even flirting with Aaron Rodgers?
I think they had a weird situation because of the season Sam Darnold had, and because of the injury history now with JJ and whatever they've seen. They have a team that they feel like they're ready to win. And so I think it is hard. You can't lie to your locker room, right? Even if JJ McCarthy is a great prospect and has a really bright future, how eager you are to hand it over to him when you have a team that's won a bunch of games, right? You just know. And so there had to have been, a variety of opinions internally of what they should do this off season, right? You couldn't help if you had 15 people in a scouting department. There's definitely some people who thought they should re-sign Darnold, guaranteed, right? That's just
100%. Yeah.
That's not saying that anything bad about the Vikings. That's just human nature. There's people on that coaching staff who surely thought, let's sign Darnold, right? We don't want to go with a rookie. So I think that they just had some weird decisions to make that were unusual and almost a product of their success. And I think it's much easier to hand it over to a rookie in the absence of Darnold having this great season, or the absence of Rodgers possibly being available with this team that seems like it was right on the edge.
Just 2 spots ahead of McCarthy is a former Bears quarterback, Justin Fields. And Mike, believe it or not, there's still a segment of this fan base in Chicago who believes that Justin Fields should still be the quarterback here and not Caleb Williams. I'm just curious, what do you make of his prospects in New York and maybe everything I just said there?
Yeah, I think the New York component is fascinating because I think it's a really hard place for quarterbacks and coaches too to do well and flourish. It's just, you think about the way that place has chewed up and spit out of Sam Darnold or Geno Smith or some of these guys who've done some decent things elsewhere. I think it's a hard environment. So, maybe his pedigree of having been at Ohio State and been at Chicago is going to help him roll with that. But I think we know what he is and isn't. And so they're going to have to play a certain style of ball with a really good defense. And I think it puts it puts a ceiling on what you're going to do ultimately. And that's why I think he's probably a placeholder for them. It's funny, his vote distribution in his last year with the Bears is almost identical to what Caleb's is this year. But I wouldn't read overly too much into that because Caleb's just coming off of his rookie season. But just something I noticed here looking at. I actually have on my screen all the Bears quarterbacks in quarterback tiers since 2014. Ranked by
run through the highest. Yeah.
Okay. Yep. So here we go. When I give the year, it's going into that year. Okay.
Okay.
Got it.
So 2014 Jay Cutler, tier 3, 2.62 average. Okay. 2016 Cutler, tier 3, 2.95 average. 2019 Trubisky, tier 3, 3.07 average. 2015 Cutler, tier 3, 3.11 average. So 3 of the top 4 are Cutler. Then 2023 Fields, tier 3, 3.12. 2025 Caleb, tier 3, 3.2. And then there's a little bit of a drop off to 2020 Nick Foles in tier 3 at 3.4. 2018 Trubisky in tier 4 at 3.5. 2022 Fields in tier 4 at 3.7. 2021 Andy Dalton. My goodness, we are really stretching here. I don't even know if he was in the. I don't even know if he was in the published version that year. He might have been. 2021, because I do more guys, than make it in. The 2021 Dalton, right. Tier 4 at 3.8. 2017 Mike Glennon. Oh my gosh, at tier 4.
That was his year.
3.8, and then 2020 Trubisky, which I'm guessing, 2020 Trubisky tier 4, 3.96. So, I can guarantee you in a pick 6 column, I'll probably run this chart of these, where the Bears quarterbacks are in the history of quarterback tiers. It's tough.
You should. I'd love to see that visualized. That is, well, man, I don't know if I'd love it, but yeah.
The glory. The glory days of Jay Cutler. The
big 4 games of Mike Glennon.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Hey, Mike, great stuff. We always love you jumping on with us to discuss all this. It's always, I feel like this project's great everywhere. It's a little bit more interesting in some markets than others. And for whatever reason here in Chicago, it's certainly a firestorm every year.
It is. It always seems to be something, and even when you get the consensus number 1 pick, we're like, would you rather have had these other guys?
Yeah.
So let's just get into the season. And I'd say I remember Bruce Arians used to say, maybe it was self-serving, but you need at least a half a season of a quarterback in a new system before we start making judgments. So I'm sure everyone in Chicago and nationally, ESPN, everybody's going to wait the full half of the season before conferring any judgment on what's going on there with Caleb.
It'll be completely calm on September 9th, that Tuesday morning after the Monday night opener against the Vikings. There'll be no conclusions. JJ McCarthy too. There'll be no conclusions made.
Oh my gosh, this is just ripe. I can't wait.
It's going to be entertaining.
Like Sando, you can read them in The Athletic, and you definitely should. Thanks so much, Mike.
Thank you, guys. We'll see you.
Thanks, Mike.
So, Jahns, it's always interesting talking to Mike about the QB tiers. I think my only surprise, I mean, if you had asked me last week, where's Caleb Williams going to end up, I would have said tier 3.
Yeah.
I think my only surprise is within tier 3, how far down he still is.
Behind Drake May, who didn't have really that good of a season in his rookie year.
Right. It was a little bit up and down. I'm a little surprised Sam Darnold, who came in at 20, is not higher after the season he had. I know they're excited about Bo Nix. I mean, I guess Tua should still be ahead of Caleb. He's at 17. Aaron Rodgers being at 16, though, I'm just wondering what people are seeing there. He just really seems
sometimes it's just the name.
I know he put up a lot of yards last year, but that was a lot of empty yards. Like similar to how Mike brought up Jimmy Garoppolo in that interview. Like sometimes it doesn't tell the whole story, what a guy really still is in his career. So I don't know. So how many tier 3 quarterbacks are ahead of Caleb? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 before you get to Caleb, who's on the back end of tier 3. I guess that's the only thing that surprised me.
Well, honestly, seeing Matthew Stafford, if you're going down the list and seeing Matthew Stafford as a tier 1 guy, I mean, that catches your eye right away. But as Mike said, he was the guy living on the border for a while, and obviously did something with his voters this year. He polls, if you're new to this, I don't know why you'd be new to this, but so Mike polls 50, well, it's a combination of GMs, different executives, coaches, defensive coordinators, offensive coordinators around the league for their votes, their opinions on these quarterbacks. And as you heard, some of these quarterbacks don't even make the cut. Poor Andy Dalton's Bears tenure is long forgotten at this point, but I love it. He's been doing this for years now, dating back to his ESPN days, and it's just so many different quarterbacks to talk about. Like that segment at the end, that last clip at the end, that was great hearing him run down all those Bears quarterbacks.
Yeah, we're gonna have to cut.
Great, I don't know, but
yeah, we got to cut that and put that out separately. I totally forgot though, well, maybe this is better to handle off air anyway. But I got to find out who the 3 people are that did not put Josh Allen in tier 1, and they need to have their votes revoked for 2026. What are we doing there? Josh Allen not in tier 1?
It's like that sports reporter not voting for Ichiro to be a unanimous Hall of Famer. Is that league?
That guy probably did that guy get exposed though?
I don't know actually.
I think the votes are public now, right?
They can be,
but it's optional.
A shame on me for not finalizing or finishing off that story then.
Yeah, but I don't know. Like most things in baseball, the Hall of Fame's gotten kind of fallen off the radar a little bit in recent years. All right. Well, fun episode. It's where we're at in camp right now. I mean, hopefully when we come back next week following the game against the Bills, there's a little bit of a different tune. Maybe these 3 days of practice, the joint practice goes well. He plays well Sunday night. That'd be nice to be able to talk about. So it seems like a big week here for the Bears, for Caleb Williams, for this offense in particular, and for Ben Johnson too, because he was hired here to make all this work.
Yeah, and I don't think we're overstating this at all.
I don't either.
We know it's training camp. We know it's practice. We know there's supposed to be failure. But I think at this point, I think Ben Johnson himself, he may tell you later today, more consistency, less balls on the ground, and not just today, but Thursday, especially Friday versus the Bills, and then maybe if he gets action in the preseason game.
Yeah. All right. Well, we need to get to Hallis Hall, so we're going to jump out of here. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Please hit the like button. Please subscribe to the channel. If you're not a subscriber to CHGO, you should go subscribe to that channel as well. Rate and review the pod. Send it off to a friend. Let's see that new Hoge and Jahns gear out at camp this week. There's only 3 more open practices. The hats are starting to come in. They look just fantastic. It's all available. Go to store.allcitynetwork.com. And if you sign up to become a diehard, that deal is still $36, and you can pick any free shirt now. But that includes the Hoge and Jahns shirt. So that's all in there for you. Again, thanks to Mike Sando. Thanks to Stephen Nicholas, pinch hitting, producing on today's episode as well. Katie will be back with us next week. We will be back next week as well. We will have another preseason game to discuss on Monday. We will talk to you then.
We all silly like the mayor.